What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing good. It's a beautiful day. Once more, we back at it again. Today, we're going to talk about something very interesting. There was a huge, massive meeting about presidents around the world in Paris, including African presidents and European presidents and many others from all around the world discussing about things that are happening in the world. And what's very interesting is there's a speech, a very emphatic speech from South African President Cyril Ramaphosa that's asked the world to literally respect Africa. We are not beggars, he said. And that's really touched my heart. And I felt like I need to share this with you. And I need to hear what you have to say. So it's very interesting. It's about 8 minutes. I want you to listen to what Cyril Ramaphosa said on a microphone in front of many presidents around the world. And I want to hear what you have to say about this. Let's go.
The other important thing for this to happen, it will help us not to participate as unequal cousins in these institutions. It will help us to participate fully, and so that we don't have a sense that we are beggars, that we are being dealt with out of generosity.
Africans are not beggars. That's basically what he's saying. Let's listen.
I think it's important in the new era that the world is in now that there should be a good measure of equality among sovereign nations. You know, recently, 7 African countries decided to go and put a call for peace to Ukraine and to Russia. And we raised a number of issues. Zambia was represented, Comoros was represented, Republic of Congo was represented, Senegal was represented, Uganda, as well as South Africa. So we were all represented, and Egypt as well. So we were all at one, that even as we were going to address an issue of the war which has had a negative impact on the African continent, which is the rise in prices for food, rise in prices for fertilizers, we were clear that we are not going there as beggars. We are not going to ask for a favor to both Ukraine and Russia. We were going there to say, open up the Black Sea Channel so that the grains and the fertilizers should go into the world market. So we were not on a begging mission, even as we are in great need as a continent and all that. That should go to demonstrate that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals. Even in the multilateral institutions, we want to be treated as equals. And if our equity is at a low ebb, there must be ways in which that can be addressed. To us, this is very important. Our sovereignty is one of the things that we hold on dearly to. And we demonstrated that very clearly to both President Zelensky and to President Putin when it came to this issue. Even as there were suggestions that, yes, we can donate this, we can donate that, we said, we want you to release these grains and fertilizers to the world market so that the world can trade in these commodities and other issues we can handle in a different way. I wanted to make that point so that it should be understood where Africa has evolved up to. We want to be key players on the world stage, want to be key players even in the financial markets and in the MDBs. Now, these are the positive things. I do, Mr. President Macron, want us to address another issue which to us is a bit of a negative. You will have heard President Sisi talking about the 100 billion that was promised in Paris. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday as well also spoke about it at the dinner. Now, there is that issue that a number of the commitments that have been made have not really been fully lived up to. But before I get into details, let me immediately say that we recognize the many initiatives that have been put on the table, and a number of countries here have done so. Germany has gone out of the way to put a number of initiatives, and the US has also done a number of things. But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits by your big pharmaceutical companies? And that too, I must tell you now, generated and deepened that disappointment and resentment on our part, because we felt like life in the Northern Hemisphere is much more important than life in the global South. And these are issues that need to be addressed. And I'm glad that we are all seated here like this, because we've got to get to the heart of these matters and address them. Now, I come to promises that have been made. And Chancellor Scholz was saying, we've got to walk the talk. Yes, we want to see the talk being walked. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday said at the dinner, $100 billion was promised per year. And he was saying, I've never seen that. And many of us will testify that that $100 billion has never really been made available. And this should stand out as something that needs to be addressed. Because sometimes we sit at conferences like this and say, yes, we'll make this available, and we believe you. We believe you, but now the tire must hit the tar. We must now see action flowing from that. Now, I want to then talk about something very practical. President Sassou Nguesso raised it yesterday. He said he would be happy if flowing from this summit, we do something very practical on the infrastructure side. Having said that 600 million people in Africa do not have electricity, and yet we've got all the resources to generate electricity, particularly the mighty Congo River. And that there have been plans to build a number of power stations that will generate, in my calculation, up to 70,000 megawatts. And he said, and I want to speak in support of this proposal, that to prove that these summits are not summits where we just talk, flowing from the Paris COP as well as others, let us now put money on the table and collectively say we are going to address this mega project. A mega project which will in the end generate electricity for up to 12, 15 African countries all at one go.
That's what it is. Again, I'm going to make a very small comment before I hear from you. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. This is not just about me talking to you about what's happening. It's also about you contributing, bringing your 2 cents and whatever you have so we can all as a community really understand each other and draw from each other's energy. So basically what I understand from this is President Ramaphosa is asking for respect for African nations because as we know, the way we are treated on the world platform is not necessarily respectable. They perceive us as beggars. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. On the last trip of the president of Africa, who went to Ukraine and Russia to discuss a measure of peace for the two countries, there were many comments. Some were very disrespectful, saying African countries and presidents have come to Ukraine and Russia for their own benefits, looking for opportunities for donations, opportunities for resources, including food. Unbelievable. And again, he said, we did not go to Russia and Ukraine, as he say, to beg. We went there to ask them to release the seeds and the fertilizer to the market so we can purchase. Okay, the goal was to buy, not begging. That wasn't the goal. We don't need donation, President Ramaphosa said. And again, he spoke about the vaccine situation. That moment, when everybody needed a vaccine, the vaccine was stopped. They did not want to provide it for Africa. It felt like some countries bought the most vaccine for themselves. They kept it for themselves, for Europe. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that? Yes, they kept vaccines for United States and some countries in Europe. And they neglected you. Absolutely. They did it on purpose. And like the president says, he felt like some lives were more important than others. And that's created resentment. So you shouldn't be surprised when today you say to African nations to vote for Europe against some other entity and Africans refuse to do it because you showed them through that very difficult time that they were not very important. And he says again at that time, they went to the WTO talking about vaccines, saying Africa needs vaccine. We want vaccine. They said to the WTO, we want the formula so we can develop our own vaccine in Africa. They refuse. WTO is a big institution that when it comes to commercial things among nations, they judge those situations. They say no. So it felt like businessmen and investors were more important than human lives. Again, President Ramaphosa spoke again about the River Congo. There is a huge situation here about power. They're asking African nations to drop the carbon, imprint, stop producing your stuff because it's creating global warming. And he said, you promised us $100 billion a year. You promised African nations $100 billion to sort of catch up with the program of global warming so they can very slowly start cutting down on emissions and stuff like that. You have not delivered. You are actually, in fact, the people that are creating the problem, but you have not delivered. You have not delivered out of your promise. You say you're going to very slowly start distributing out of $100 billion. You've done nothing about that. So how about for now, we have the Congo River in a DRC that can produce a lot of electricity for many countries, for about 15 countries in Africa. How about we work on this mega project? How about we stop talking and, put our money where the things are in reality and get these projects going? And very interesting. So I just really found a very strong statement from President Cyril Ramaphosa telling the world, Africans are not beggars. We want to be treated as equal. If you want to deal with us, then you need to treat us accordingly. I want to know what you think about this. I want to know your comments. Yes, we really want to know, and once again, share your opinion with us. If you want to join us, please do so. It's going to be a great pleasure to build this community together, and I hope to speak to you again very soon. God bless.